Gold leaf on the ceiling, silk curtains heavy with perfume. A garden outside the window, perfectly manicured, perfectly unreachable. Behind the luxury, a locked door. For centuries, some of the most powerful men in the world lived like this. Not in chains, not in dungeons, but in silence. They were Ottoman princes, sons of sultans, heirs to an empire stretching across 3 continents. And they were prisoners. They could not leave. They could not rule. They could not even speak freely to one another. Some entered as children. Some waited decades. Many emerged broken. Others never emerged at all. This was the Kafes. The cage, a system designed not to punish criminals, but to protect an empire from tearing itself apart. So why would one of history's most powerful dynasties lock away its own future? Why trade open bloodshed for slow psychological destruction? And what happens when a man raised in isolation suddenly becomes ruler of millions? This is the story of the Golden Cage. The Ottoman Empire faced a problem that no empire ever truly solves. How do you transfer absolute power without destroying the state? Early on, the Ottomans chose brutality. Later, they chose silence. By the 17th century, the empire replaced routine fratricide with lifelong confinement. Princes were kept alive but removed from the world. This documentary argues that the Kafes was not madness or random cruelty. It was a calculated political response to instability, factionalism, and fear. But calculation does not mean wisdom. Because while the cage reduced civil war, it also produced rulers who had never ruled, men shaped by fear, isolation, and psychological damage. To understand the Golden Cage, we must start with how the Ottomans once chose their rulers. For much of Ottoman history, there was no crown prince. Every son of the Sultan had a claim to the throne. Every one of them. As teenagers, princes were sent to govern provinces. They learned administration, military command, and politics. When the Sultan died, the race began. Whichever son reached the capital first, with enough support, became Sultan. The others usually died. This was not seen as murder. It was seen as necessity. Mehmed the Conqueror made it law. In his legal code, he stated that for the order of the world, a new sultan could lawfully execute his brothers. The logic was brutal but clear. A civil war could kill tens of thousands. Killing a few princes might save the empire. For nearly 2 centuries, this system worked, but it left scars. Princes grew up knowing their brothers were potential executioners. Mothers schemed to protect their sons. Palace politics became lethal. And over time, the empire began to change. By the late 16th century, the Ottoman Empire was no longer expanding endlessly. Wars were longer. Victories were harder. Defeats were more dangerous. Inside the palace, power shifted. The Janissaries gained political influence. Viziers maneuvered for control. And the imperial harem became a center of real authority. Then, in 1603, Sultan Mehmed III died. His son Ahmed I inherited the throne at just 13 years old. Tradition demanded that he kill his younger brother, Mustafa. Ahmed refused. Mustafa lived, and something unexpected happened. The empire survived. No civil war, no collapse, no divine punishment. This single decision changed everything. Fratricide began to look unnecessary, even dangerous. Religious scholars questioned it. Foreign observers condemned it. Court factions feared its unpredictability. So the Ottomans searched for an alternative. They found the cage. The word Kafes means cage, but this was not a dungeon. It was confinement disguised as comfort. Within Topkapi Palace, secluded apartments were set aside for princes not chosen to rule. They were alive. They were fed. They were housed in luxury. And they were completely controlled. Princes could not leave their quarters. Their conversations were monitored. Their education was limited and selective. They were kept away from soldiers, away from politics, away from experience. The Kafes was never written into a single law. It emerged gradually through custom and fear. It was enforced by palace officials, eunuchs, and ultimately the Sultan himself. The promise was stability. The cost was human. Life in the Kafes was quiet, terrifyingly quiet. Princes lived in furnished rooms with screened windows and locked doors. They had gardens they could see but not walk freely through. Books were allowed. Music was allowed. Religious study was encouraged. But news from the outside world was filtered. Visitors were rare. Time lost its meaning. Marriage was restricted. Later, it was forbidden entirely. Children were dangerous. Children meant factions. Factions meant threats. Many princes spent decades without meaningful human contact. Isolation was policy. How long will I stay here? As long as God wills. No date, no future, no end. Princes were watched constantly, not for rebellion, but for signs of ambition. Too much confidence was dangerous. Too much intelligence was suspicious. Medical care was cautious. A healthy prince could become a problem. Some princes developed nervous tics. Some spoke to themselves. Some forgot how to speak properly at all. Evliya Çelebi later described princes who panicked when seeing crowds, men who had never learned how to exist in public. The cage did not prevent madness. It created it. So why did the empire continue? Because politically, it worked. The Kafes reduced succession wars. It protected reigning sultans from rebellion. It allowed court factions to manage transitions. But it also shifted real power away from the throne. Viziers ruled in the name of absent sultans. Valid sultans, the mothers, wielded influence from behind curtains. The Janissaries learned they could depose rulers without consequence. The sultan remained sacred. But increasingly, he was hollow. The empire began producing rulers who had never ruled. Men who had never commanded troops, never negotiated alliances, never faced opposition. When they emerged from isolation, they were overwhelmed. Some became passive. Others became paranoid. A few became violent. The cage prevented fratricide, but it did not prevent chaos. It simply changed its form. Modern psychology gives us language the Ottomans lacked. Long-term isolation causes anxiety, depression, hallucinations, and cognitive decline. Sudden exposure to power can trigger impulsive behavior and cruelty. We must be careful not to diagnose the past, but patterns repeat too clearly to ignore. Ottoman chroniclers describe sultans who feared open doors, who distrusted everyone, who alternated between lethargy and rage. The cage reshaped not just rulers, but the idea of rulership itself. Power became distant, untouchable, abstract, and abstraction makes suffering easier to ignore. Case study: Mustafa. Mustafa spent years in confinement. When he became sultan, he was unprepared. He showed signs of severe psychological distress. He was deposed, restored, deposed again. Courtiers whispered that he was unfit to rule, but the cage had never prepared him to be anything else. Case study: Ibrahim spent over 20 years in the Kafes. He lived in constant fear that he would be executed. When he became sultan, that fear did not disappear. It consumed him. He became paranoid, obsessive, cruel. Eventually, his own officials decided he was too dangerous to keep alive. He was executed. The cage had preserved his life, only to destroy it later. Contrast: Murad IV was not raised in the Kafes. He ruled decisively, sometimes brutally, but he ruled. His reign shows what the cage removed: experience, confidence, preparation. The golden cage was built from fear, fear of chaos, fear of rebellion, fear of losing everything. It replaced open violence with quiet destruction, blood with silence, death with living erasure. The Ottoman Empire survived the cage, but it never escaped its consequences. Power without preparation is dangerous, and stability purchased at the cost of humanity always demands repayment. If this story unsettled you, it should have. Because the Golden Cage was not just a prison, it was a warning. History remembers empires for their armies and conquests, but sometimes their greatest damage happens behind locked doors.